So, last class we have just started discussing about instruction set architecture, right. So, instruction set architecture, as I told you, it will differ from microprocessor to microprocessor, and particularly for 8085 microprocessor, what would be the instruction set architecture, right. So, in the instruction set architecture, what are the key features we are going to discuss, or what are the main characteristics available under the instruction set architecture. So, number one is the addressing mode, okay. Second is the instruction set, and third is instruction format, and fourth one is symbols and abbreviations, and fifth is instruction timing diagrams, right. So, these are the 5 attributes you can say for the instruction set architecture, and that is true for each and every microprocessor we will deal. Not only Intel series of microprocessors, they are also applicable to Motorola series, Zilux series, Texas Instruments, IBM 360. Likewise, there are number of microprocessors, I think more than 200 types of microprocessors exist today in the market, right. So, but once we understand the instruction set architecture concept of one microprocessor with a slight change in syntax and semantics, we will be able to explore the other kinds of microprocessors, right. So, in fact, these 5 are the most important things that are to be understood clearly. So, number one is the addressing mode. The meaning of the addressing mode, or the definition of addressing mode, says that the way we specify the operands in the instruction. And before that, you should know that every instruction has 2 parts. One is called opcode, another is called operand. Opcode means the operation to be performed: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, AND operation, NOT operation, comparison operations, checking the condition of a flag. All these are coming under the types of operations, and that must be represented by a corresponding opcode, that we call the operation to be performed, right. But whenever we discuss about the opcode, we should be serious about the syntax and semantics of that opcode. So, we should understand what is syntax and what is semantics associated with that opcode. For example, if I write ADD, add. So, what is the syntax? That I must write ADD for 8085. Similarly, there are other opcodes for other microprocessors that you have to remember, or you have to see from the manual, right. And here, once I write add, you will understand that accumulator is present implicitly by default. Accumulator is present there. Only I have to specify only one register. I cannot use an 8-bit data, or I cannot directly use any memory location address. Only part that I have to mention in the operand section is a register, that too an 8-bit register. That is what we call the syntax, right. And then what is semantics? After addition of the the result is stored in accumulator. So, accumulator is storing the result, that is in with respect to all Intel series of microprocessors, or you can say for 8085. So, which may not be true in other microprocessors. In other microprocessors, they may be storing in some other results, maybe in a temporary register, or maybe an a general one out of the general purpose register. Here, accumulator is a special register, and it can be also used as a general purpose register. Remember, it can be one of the general purpose register for general use, and it can also hold the result of the result of the operation. Am I clear? So, therefore, this is called syntax and semantics. So, the moment I write ADCB, you will understand that the carry is taken into consideration. So, syntax is ADC, not ADD. And what is semantics? The carry along with the B content will be added, and again the result will be by default will be stored in A, that is the semantics. So, the syntax and semantics will slightly vary from microprocessor to microprocessor. I think you understood the meaning of opcode. And what are the operands here? The operands are A and B, where A is implicit and B is explicit. Explicitly, you have to specify in the instruction the kind of operands we are using in the instructions, right. So, this is how the every instruction in every microprocessor splitted into 2 parts, opcode and operands. Is it okay? Now coming to the addressing mode. So, the moment I say addressing mode, this is in general you have to specify the operands, but whenever we go to the exact address, the types of addressing modes, there we will see that all microprocessor will not support all kinds of addressing modes, because it is a very general for general definition. The way we specify, what are the different ways? The ways we specify the operands. So, what do you mean by the operand? The data. So, the data can be 8 bit, or data can be 8 bit, or data can be stored in register, or the data can be stored in a memory location. Is there anything left? Remember, exhaustively if you see the way we specify the operand in the instruction, that is called the addressing mode. But what are the different ways in specifying the operand? So, first of all you should know what are the types of operands we can specify. The first type is I can specify an 8 bit data or 8 bit address, or I can specify a 16 bit data or 16 bit address. So, you may be thinking what is 8 bit address? Because address is always 16 bit. Why 8 bit address is coming to the picture? Are you getting? Because I can write 8 bit data or I can write 16 bit address, that is well defined. But if I tell that one 8 bit address also can be specified in the instruction, can you guess where I should use an 8 bit address in the instruction? For example, I am reading an input device, I am reading a data which is available in the buffer of an input device. So, the opcode is IN, the 8 bit address can be used as the port address of that particular device. For example, the 8 bit address is 05H. What is the meaning of this? That means we are the microprocessor is reading a data which is available in the device whose address is 05H, and where it is storing in the accumulator. Accumulator is implicit. In many instances you will see that accumulator need not be specified, but it is there. That is the way we specify the operand in the instruction. That is one way. So, exhaustively if you see, either I can go for an 8 bit data or 8 bit address, or I can go for a 16 bit data or 16 bit address, or I can specify an 8 bit register or a 16 bit register pair, and finally I can specify the memory location address. So, these are the different ways to specify the addressing mode, or to specify the data in the instruction. But here one thing is that if I say that 05 I will not explicitly write in the instruction. Assume that 05 is stored in a register B, and then B I will write here INB, and before that I will load 05 into B. So, here I am not specifying the data immediately in the instruction. I am storing the data somewhere else and bringing into the instruction. So, that is called immediate, that is not called that is called direct addressing. In fact, we cannot say it is indirect addressing or immediate addressing. So, there the varieties of addressing modes come to the picture. The way we access a device or a memory location or a register. The way we access, if we are accessing directly, it is direct addressing mode. But if we are accessing indirectly from a memory location or from a register pair, then it is called indirect addressing. That we shall see with some examples how the addressing mode will vary, and if you have more number of addressing modes, your instruction set architecture will be more efficient. Okay. So, addressing mode, this is clear that addressing mode plays a very important role as far as the instruction set architecture of any microprocessor is concerned. Okay. Second is instruction set. What are the instruction set? All the instructions supported by that microprocessor. That is why I have written the entire group of instructions: arithmetic group, logical group, comparison group, etc. And under the arithmetic group, particularly if you see the 8085, it only supports addition and subtraction, increment and decrement, nothing else. But if you go for 8086, it will also support multiplication and division, and it will also support floating point addition and floating point arithmetic, but not with the respect to 8086, or rather we should go for another microprocessor which can work parallel with 8086, but that provision is not there in 8085. It is just like suppose one person is working doing a job, and if the two persons working on the same job, certainly the job will be faster, isn't it? Whenever one person is doing one job and two persons are doing the same job, certainly the job will be faster. So, in the same way, along with the microprocessor, we can take the help of co-processors, and they can parallelly work. They can be interfaced each other, so that whenever the execution comes, the co-processor will pick up its own task. Because whenever you are writing a program, either in assembly language or in high level language program, at any point of time you can observe you are only performing two tasks, either computation or you are doing communication. What is communication? You are transferring the data from one place to another place, from memory to I/O, or from a register to memory location, like this. And there are exclusive computational instructions like addition, or performing an arithmetic statement function, or doing a tangential trigonometric function or exponential function. These are called the computations. So, at any point of time, either you are doing computation or you are doing communication. Is there anything else? If you pick up any statement or instruction from high level language or assembly language program, either it is a communication intensive instruction or it is a computational intensive instruction. So, whenever computational intensive question comes, we will understand that microprocessor is completely involved. And whenever the communication is coming to picture, the I/O devices, memory and other peripheral devices excluding microprocessor is coming to the picture. And if the microprocessor is performing both the operations, computation as well as the communication, don't you think that microprocessor is underutilized? So, therefore, we should go for a co-processor which will pick up only the computational task, and it will perform inside this and only produce the result, and which will be given to the microprocessor. And during that, microprocessor may be busy with some common instructions or data transfer instructions or communication instructions, but that is optional. If you do not have a co-processor, microprocessor has to do everything. If there are no two persons for doing the same job, the one person is there, then one person has to complete the job, it has to complete the entire job. In the same way, if the microprocessor is not attached to the co-processor, then microprocessor has to do everything. Am I clear? Similarly, there are some exclusive microprocessors used for data transfer. Their task is to only transfer the data. They will not deal with the computation. Then who will do the computation? Microprocessor. So, if you are using a co-processor, so which will only perform the communication task. Can you give an example of co-processor which only performs the data transfer? You have studied in computer organization architecture. So, it is DMA controller, direct memory access. So, it will only pick up the data transfer instructions, execute and transfer the data directly from I/O device to memory or memory to I/O devices, and only computational task will be done by the microprocessor. And a computational co-processors like 8087, it is usually connected with 8086. So, they will be performing the computational task. So, now the question comes, if the microprocessor is capable of doing the arithmetic function, what is the need of another co-processor which will also perform arithmetic functions? So, adding a co-processor meaning is that you can take highly computational intensive instructions like floating point addition, floating point subtraction, exponential functions, trigonometric functions, or you have written a special subroutine which will be executed faster. So, for that you can use a co-processor which will target only the computational part, not the communication part. And think of a situation where in a microcomputer processor is there and a co-processor for computation and a co-processor for data transfer. So, you can see that the entire execution time will be 3 times, not even 3 times, more than 3 times will be improved. Are you understanding the concept? So, whenever you go on adding the extra peripheral devices, peripheral processors along with the microprocessors, the computational speed of the microprocessor will increase. and that is the main reason why the people focus on the architecture rather than increasing the bandwidth, bus bandwidth, and that is the main reason why maximum we have 64-bit microprocessor, and which was developed in the year 2008 or 2010. After that it has become stagnant, because they thought that there are a lot of features available in the architecture side, let us exploit that. And till today also it is being exploited without increasing the bandwidth, address bus and data bus, right. So, these are the capability, why I am telling, because these are the capability of instruction set architecture. So, instead of increasing the bandwidth, let us concentrate on the architectural part of the microprocessor, and based upon that you set the instruction, so that programmer will be able to write the program flexibly, right. So, this is the instruction set, and if the instruction set is powerful, or if you are available with more number of instructions, then you can feel flexible in writing the assembly language program. That we shall see how the same problem can be written in various ways with using lesser number of instructions and using more number of instructions, right. So, under these things, under this instruction set, all these issues will come out. We will see one by one each of this group of instructions. Then instruction format is also equally important. What is instruction format? Under the instruction format, we have instruction length, number of operands and operand representation. What is instruction length? The number of bits representing that instruction. For example, if I say move immediate A 35H, what is the meaning of this? 35 in hexadecimal will be loaded into the register accumulator. And what is the code for move immediate A? And I think by this time everybody has remembered the hex code for move immediate A, because this is a very commonly used instruction. So, the hex code for this is 3E, is not it? And what is the second byte? 35. Now, this is 8 bit, this is 8 bit. So, how many bit instruction it is? 16 bit. So, the length of the instruction is 16 bit. Similarly, if you see add B, it is an 8 bit instruction, because if there is 8 bit or 16 bit is not specified, you will understand that it will be, usually it will take 1 byte. But there are some instructions, even though if you do not write 8 bit 16 bit address, it will take more bytes, and reason I will tell whenever we discuss that those particular instructions, right. So, anyway, so instruction length means you must express in terms of bits. So, how many operands we can specify in an instruction, particularly for 8085? You can observe maximum 2, minimum 1 or 0. So, maximum is 2, minimum is 0. There are some instructions where 0 operands are there, and you may be surprising why such instructions are available where there is no operand and where it will get the operand. And example is NOP, example is halt. Lastly, you are writing an instruction, what is the operand there? Nothing. So, 0 operand instructions, and no operation. No operation means it will not do any kind of operation, but still it will consume the time, and that time, amount of time it is consuming is important for us, because that will work as a delay, and so sometimes we need delay, right. So, all these things we shall discuss under this instruction format. Then symbols and abbreviations are very important as far as the programmer, assembler and microprocessor is concerned. But we should understand what is the role of a programmer, and what is the role of assembler, and what is the role of a microprocessor. So, assembler is a program again which need not be written in assembly language, it can be also written in high level language. Its task is to take the assembly language code as input and produce the corresponding machine code, right, and how it produces, that we shall discuss afterwards. Then what is a programmer? Programmer who is writing the assembly language program and executing on the microprocessor kit. Is it okay? Clearly defined. And what is a microprocessor? Sometimes what happens, if it is a small program, you will not hesitate to write it. But if you are writing a program which has 4 pages or 5 pages, what will you do? Suppose a programmer is writing a program which is around 5 pages, and in every page you are writing around 20 lines of code. So, how many lines? 5 into 2, 100 lines of code. And most of the time you can see that some of the codes are very similar in nature and some of the codes also repeated. I am not telling about the subroutine, I am telling about the text. Initially your program is a text, unless it is compiled or assembled, it is becoming a text, and that text is the many parts of that text is repeated in many places in your program. Is it possible to write only once and give a name to that block of codes, and as and when it is required in other part of the program, you can call by that name. I am telling about the text, not the subroutine or procedure which is returning the result. These macroprocessors will process certain macros which will not return the result. What is the result it will return? A group of statements which are repeatedly used in a program, and only you have to declare once, as and when it is required you can call it. And this is a macroprocessor, it is a what you call additional feature available in almost all instruction set architecture of microprocessors. This is what you can say an additional concept available just to support the programmer and assembler, but it is a cumbersome for the machine, because machine always will expect the data to be in binary, but programmer always will expect the data should be in high level language, because learning an high level language is easier as compared to assembly language. Why? Unless you know the machine architecture, we cannot learn the assembly language, but high level languages are machine independent, therefore assembly languages are machine dependent. Is it okay? So, therefore, macroprocessor is again another program which will take the program with macro facility and produce the original code in assembly language, which will be final input to the microprocessor. So, it is different from the subroutine, do not confuse with the subroutine. So, macroprocessors are called the open subroutines, and the subroutine procedures which are using in high level language or machine language or in assembly language, which produces certain results which are used in your program, are called the closed subroutines. I think you understood the difference between open subroutine and the closed subroutine. So, the result of open subroutine is again another set of instructions which are in the expanded form, and to make the programmer flexible we are using the macros, but fortunately 8085 uses very less number of macros, but 8086 onwards you will find they are full of macros, and once you write that macro and as and when you need, just give a name to that macro and use that name in different places of the program to call that macro, so that the expanded source code will appear in that section, and again that means repeatedly we do not have to write the block of codes. Am I clear? So, this is what the symbols and abbreviations. So, as per the symbols and abbreviations is concerned, these are nothing related to the mnemonics. Mnemonics, these are predefined by the microprocessor architecture, but I am talking about the macros which are many times user defined. So, we use a symbol so that the readability or the meaning of that symbol should be reflected in the code. For example, if I tell the roll number of a student is a variable in C language, I will just write x is the roll number of a student, it is also a variable. In the place of x, I can use roll number ROLL -NO or underscore NO. So, which is better? Which readability is more? Roll number, because it reflects the meaning of that variable. So, we should be concerned about the symbols. While using the symbols in your program, try to use the symbols which will be really reflecting the meaning of that. So, whenever you write macros, do not write XYZ or ABC. You use a name so that the meaning of that macro will be reflected in that text or in the variable, right. That is the meaning of this macro. So, macroprocessor is itself a very powerful concept as far as the assembly language is concerned, but this macroprocessing are also available in high level languages. If you take the C language, can you give an example of macros? Hash define x 25, throughout the program x will be treated as the 25, right. So, this is also a macro, but this is the simplest macro. Macro can be extended to a number of instructions also. Is it okay? So, symbols and I think understood how the symbols and abbreviations are also equally important, and that is a part of the instruction set architecture. And the design team must focus on these five items before designing the instruction set architecture of any microprocessor. And this is what had happened in 8085, but unfortunately they have not focused all these features carefully, for which 8085 instructions are too trivial, elementary, and it could not be powerful as far as the general computing facility is concerned. Therefore, it could not be used as a full-fledged microprocessor for computer. And even 8086 failed to become a microprocessor of a microcomputer or personal computer. So, which was succeeded? 8088, which is another group of designers in Intel corporations. They designed the 8088 microprocessor, and that was the first microprocessor to be used as the microcomputer, used in the microcomputer, right. So, therefore, symbols and abbreviations are, everything is important for us. It is not that we should not focus on the symbols and abbreviations. So, you will see in 8085 there are lot of symbols. With a small variant of the task, we will be having lot many symbols. So, anyway, and of course, as far as the execution is concerned or instruction set is concerned, we should be able to track how much time an instruction takes to execute. That is also required. So, for that we should depend upon the instruction timing diagrams. This will tell you how much exactly time required to execute an instruction, to keep track of execution times of instruction execution. This is also important. But how to represent this execution time? With the help of 3 cycles or 3 timings. One time is the instruction cycle, which already I have defined. The total execution time of the instruction is known as the instruction cycle. And machine cycle, one instruction cycle consists of different machine cycles, and one machine cycle finally trivially consists of set of clock periods. I think the clock period is the what do you call, the resolution of the microprocessor. Below that we will not be able to track any further timings which are available in a microprocessor. Clock period is the most trivial one. Just like your neutron or proton, is it possible to break the neutron or electron? So, similarly clock cycle is the last one. Below that we do not have further division. In other words, a number of clock cycles or T states constitute a machine cycle, and a number of machine cycle constitute a instruction cycle, and a number of instruction cycle constitute the total execution time of the program. And the total execution time of different programs used for a package or software is called the software execution time. This is how the software execution times are found. Even though you are seeing in the computer screen the execution time of any task, so they are basically based upon this instruction timing diagrams, and we shall discuss how the instruction timing diagrams varies from one instruction to another. So, coming to the addressing modes. So, in the addressing modes, 8085, as I told you, it is the simplest microprocessor in the entire series of microprocessors or entire curriculum of the engineering or wherever the microprocessor is present. This is the simplest and smallest microprocessor in the curriculum, but the kind of microprocessor you are using for calculator, still it is lesser than 8085. Like a 4-bit microprocessor is sufficient to design a calculator, because calculator, many calculators are not programmable. So, under this addressing modes, 8085 supports immediate addressing modes, then second it supports also register addressing mode, and third is direct addressing mode, and fourth is register indirect modes, and fifth is implicit addressing modes. Total there are 5 addressing modes. That is what I told you, this is the simplest microprocessor which supports only 5 addressing modes, but we shall see in 8086 it supports at least 12 to 16 addressing modes, and today's Itanium series of microprocessors, they supports more than 128 addressing modes, more than 128 addressing modes, and as I told you, if the addressing modes are more, the instruction set architecture is more powerful and efficient. So, then we should understand what is immediate addressing. The example for immediate addressing is move immediate DFFH, and why it is called immediate? Because the data is present in the instruction. Move immediate DFFA means FF is the 8-bit data for exactly this corresponds to 8 ones, and for simplicity we are writing FF. So, this FF will be loaded into the register D, and since data is specified, 8-bit data is specified in the instruction, we call it is immediate addressing. Another example, LXI H 2050H. Can I say it is immediate addressing? Can I say it is immediate addressing? Here 2050 is the data, 16-bit data loaded into the register pair HL. And how to know it is immediate addressing? One way is that you can observe the syntax. I is written, but in many immediate addressing instructions I need not be written. But here in 8085 they are exclusively showing that for immediate addressing we should use I. So, MVI move immediate, LXI load immediate. Am I clear? So, this is what called immediate address. Similarly, there is another instruction also for immediate, ADI 25H. What is ADI? Add immediate, and accumulator is implicit. 25 will be added with accumulator and the result will be stored in accumulator. So, likewise you can come across with many instructions which are coming under the immediate addressing. Then in the register addressing, the registers are used as the operand. Registers are used as the operand. Example, move A comma B, add C, PCHL. Okay. So, what is move A comma B? Always the source in the right side and destination in the left side. That is by default all Intel series of microprocessors. But if you go for Motorola, it is reverse. Okay. So, move A comma B will understand that B content will be transferred to A. So, never confuse that A content will be stored in B. If you assume that, the entire program logic will be wrong. Then add C. What is the C? A content will be added with the C and the result will be stored in A. That already you have done in the kit. So, what is PCHL? Program counter is a register 16-bit register, and HL is register pair, 16-bit register pair. So, PC content and HL content will be exchanged or swapped. HL content will be stored in PC and PC content will be stored in HL, and sometimes this is also required. We shall see in some programs these instructions are very, if you do not know this instruction, it will be more complicated to perform that task. It does not mean that without knowing PCHL we cannot do, we can do, but many more number of instructions will be required. And if you are acquainted with more number of instructions, your number of instructions required to write the program will be less, small. Okay. So, try to write program so that many instructions will be acquainted. So, anyway, then direct addressing. So, in the direct addressing, the address of the instruction, the address of the operand is always present in the instruction. Address of the operand is always present in the instruction. What is the meaning of this? Example, in 00H. Here 00 is not the data, 00 is the address of an input device whose content or whose buffer's content will be loaded into the accumulator. So, here address is specified. Am I clear? I will give another example, LDA 2030H. What is the meaning of this? 2030 here is clearly a memory location address whose content is an 8-bit data will be loaded into the register accumulator. Is it clear? So, again I am telling 2030 is a memory location address whose content is an 8-bit data which will be made available in the accumulator whenever you execute this instruction. Similarly, I can write another instruction, store accumulator C050H. What is the meaning of this? And how will you pronounce it? That the content of accumulator, store accumulator content into the memory location whose address is C050. Am I clear? Store the STA, ST stands for store, A stands for accumulator. This is how you can easily remember the instruction. Store accumulator content in a memory location address whose memory location address C050. Store the content of accumulator A into a memory location whose address is specified in the instruction C050. That is the literal meaning of this instruction, right. Then register indirect. The contents of the specified registers specify the address of operands. The contents of the specified registers specify the address of operands. Example, LDAX B. And here you can observe in 8085 wherever X is there, that is also one way to interpret this is coming under the indirect addressing. The way we understood, wherever I is there, but see, remember it is not always true. In some instruction it may be deviating. Just I am by observing the instruction set, we can say most of the instructions are following this principle. If we are writing I, that means it is immediate, and if we are writing X, it is indirect, and which may not be always true. That is just a trip, you can say it is a tips to remember or to understand. But in reality, you have to understand in this way that an immediate data must be present for immediate addressing, and here the address should be specified indirectly. But the meaning, what is the meaning of indirection? So here you will understand that load accumulator content with the memory location address, with the memory location content whose address is available in the register pair BC. Even though I write B, you will understand that I am writing BC. You need not write clearly BC. That is the syntax. Even if you write LDX BC here, there will be a syntax error in the assembler. When you assemble this code to the machine language code, there will be a syntax error. That is why I told you, you should be a bit careful about the syntax and semantics of the instruction. So, LDAX B. The meaning is that if suppose BC is containing 2050 and 2050 is a memory location whose data is 35H, because an 8-bit data I can store in a memory location. Each location is of 1 byte or 8 bits, right. So, LDX B means the BC content is 2050 and 2050 content is 35. 35 will be loaded into the accumulator. Is it clear? So, how many times I have to access the memory? Okay, that issues will come, we will see, because the number of times we are accessing the memory, that will show how many clock periods are necessary to finish the execution of this instruction. And every time, as I told you, every time you access the memory, it will take more time, and if you are not accessing the memory, but accessing the register, it will take less time. So, to reduce the execution time, try to use the registers extensively. Whenever you get an opportunity to use the registers, try to use that instead of memory. But remember, number of registers are limited. And try to use the registers judiciously, so that once the registers which are used and already has produced the result and which are no longer necessary in other part of the program, you can reuse those registers to make the program faster. And there the trade-off comes, and that should be balanced by a good programmer. Okay. So, anyway, these challenges will come whenever you write the real programs in 8085 or in any other microprocessor. I think understood what is the meaning of LDXB. So, load accumulator content, the value of memory location whose address is present in the register pair BC. Is it okay? Similarly, I can give another example, STAXD. What is the meaning of this? The content of accumulator will be stored in a memory location whose address is in the register pair D. Load means we are transferring the data from memory to microprocessor. Store means we are transferring the data from microprocessor to memory. Similarly, implicit addressing, example DAA, decimal adjust accumulator, CMA, complement accumulator. For example, you are using 05 is current data of accumulator, and after executing CMA you will get 1111 and 5 means 0100. So, 1011. What is the value now? FB. So, initially it was 05, now after using CMA it became FB, and if you use 2 times CMA you will get back the original data, and here accumulator is implicit. I am nowhere specifying the operands, but operand is taken by default accumulator, therefore, it is coming under the implicit addressing. That is the reason how to identify whether a particular instruction is coming in which addressing mode. Then rotate accumulator left, RAL. Here you do not have to mention the operand, operand is the accumulator. Whatever the values there in the accumulator, it will be rotated left by one position. For example, okay, assume that this is the content of accumulator. After executing this instruction, this one will be moved to the place of 0, this one will be moved to the place of 1s. Likewise, every bit position will be shifted left by one position. What about the rightmost bit position? Because rightmost cell will be empty. So, what will be its content? The leftmost bit which was already shifted, which is already what do you call, the next leftmost bit position is already occupying this cell. So, that will be shifted to the right side. Anyway, there are number of variants of rotate instructions. Whenever you go to the rotate instruction, we shall see. This is the simplest rotate instructions. There are again another 4 or 5 rotate instructions. You can also allow the shifting of the bits going through the carry flag. Carry flag will be affected by the leftmost bit position of the accumulator. Then we shall see how rotate accumulator left, rotate accumulator right, etc. Okay, so this is how we finish the addressing modes. Next class we will go to instruction set, then we will go to instruction format and so on.